4 discusses configuring a small business server 2000 applications, such as fax and modem sharing, or internet connection wizard, maybe email services and firewall, and also IIS, and perhaps some troubleshooting that you might face. The first section talks about fax and modem sharing. Pretty straightforward. If you have a fax machine and you would like to have that to be shared around your network, you have to install this service. They call it shared fax service. Faxing documents from a small business server network is going to be capable by running this service here. As you see right now, I have ran the small business server personal console, which would be right from here, and also this is the administrative console. Usually you give the personal console to people who are not as technical as you are as an administrator. For example, you want to manage fax, you can just click on a fax, and that automatically pretty much gives you a list of available icons that you can choose. Like you want to send the fax, you could do it. You could manage fax jobs. For example, if I click in here, it's going to just bring up a screen in which it shows all the incoming or inbox faxes. You can actually manage the faxes. And of course, as far as like edit the fax cover page, you could just go in here and do it for your company. It brings up a small little editor, like a Word editor, and then you can start, creating some sort of a document in there. And yes, you could pretty much do anything. You could just pretty much place anything in there, as far as graphics, image, logo, and everything. And of course, you could send the fax. As far as the printers, you could manage printers, if you will. And by default, they have given you a shared fax as a service as a printer. I mean, people see that the fax machine as a printer. So they can just simply print to the fax and automatically it gets faxed. And then of course you could add a printer, you could change the printer, you could manage the job, and so forth. As far as the computers available, mine is only one. Of course yours probably is more than one server and many clients. And then of course you could do the previous lab that you did, part of module 3. And you could add users right from here and pretty much set email accounts, and pretty much set the group's account policies. This is a small business server personal console that I just demonstrated for you. Also, you have the main small business server administrator console that you can go and manage many different things. Throughout the rest of these chapters, we're going to discuss many of these options. You just did the add computer setup wizard in previous lab, and you are a little bit familiar with this. And I just showed you the printers, and by default, so far we have one shared fax. I can go to the properties, and as you see, part of the property we could specify if this fax machine has the capability of color, or have the capability of putting a stables, or even double-sided as a printer. And then of course you could manage it by a specific user. This is a shared fax machine. However, there's another utility, they call it Microsoft Shared Fax, that literally can go and open up its own console. Shared Fax Service Console has its own application, and you can actually see that you can get the incoming inboxes, outboxes, and send item and manage them. The same screen came right off the personal administration. Also, you can go to Shared Fax Service Manager in order to manage that service. And as you see here, you could take a look at the available services and devices that are available. For example, on this box, I have one modem, and I can have this modem to act like a, fax machine. You could start storing the information that are coming to this modem in a folder. You could print them right away, or you could email the faxes. Absolutely, you can. No. All you have to do is just put the email, and automatically they can actually get it. Shared fax service, again, is part of administration right here. Shared fax service manager. So this is for device and folders. You can set them up. And these are software providers. By default, Microsoft has given you one. You have to just have a modem somehow, and a line connect to it, to your small business server. And of course, global methods are available that you can configure them, if you will. You could specify a specific driver. They're all being set for you. You could associate, groups of different modems. As I said, you have only one. You could have like 10 modems. You could have different rules. As you see, you could specify different rules in here, and specify to a specific device if you have, or a specify area code for each modem. You could have one modem for Europe, one modem for local, you know what I mean? With different lines on it. And these are available cover pages that you can go and edit. These are examples of some cover pages that are available. You can create your own, if you will. Now, as I mentioned, configuring a shared fax service allows you to go and set the inbox, outbox, sent item, and so forth. These are all available properties that can be set by going through the shared fax itself, setting the properties of it, or simply go and say modify printer property and pretty much get that screen that I was talking about. And you could simply set some properties value for your own shared fax. There you go. You could specify the ports. You could specify if it's shared or not. You could set the advanced properties for that shared fax and also set the security, who can use it. Also, you could manage the jobs because it's being treated like a printer. So you could pretty much manipulate it like that. So in order to manage shared fax service, again, as I mentioned, you could simply go and use the administration in here, and on the shared fax services, if I just can get this, you see this is the shared fax services, and if I go to the properties of this, you get the screen that you saw on the slide. In this screen, you could disable submission of new outgoing fax, disable transmission. You could disable the fax services temporarily for some reason. On the recipient, you could specify the messages as an email to a specific email address and to a server. So as soon as the fax comes, you could email it. Event reports, you could specify how you would like to log the event into Windows operating system to understand at what time you have received the fax. So if someone claims that, oh, I never received that fax, we can go and prove it that they have. All these events are going to be logged in activity log. As far as the outbox is going to tell you how long you're going to keep this information, and as far as the inbox is going to tell you how big of the size you want to capture the information, and the send item. And finally, who can use what? By default, everyone can submit low priority and normal priority faxes. Faxing document from a small business server is just going to be done by simple print command. So since you already have that service, users don't have to be worried about anything. You just have to treat it like a regular printer. In order to configure the shared modem device, just in case if you want to answer many calls, incoming or outgoing, you have to create a modem pool, or you have to buy a modem pool from a hardware company. So you don't have to buy software because Microsoft already has one. And here, as far as the information, these are the shared directories that we have. But as far as the shared modem, you actually got to go to a specific, for example, location for your modems, and automatically that modem get set up. There is an icon here in control panel that calls shared modem service. If I open that up, this service is automatically running. And as you see, number of device connections is 0. If you have like a hardware modem pool and you installed it, automatically you see number of devices here. So you can stop or start or pause it. And it shows the status for the users that are available and also configuration on the pool. You could add a new pool if you will, and then configure it. So most of the time, if you have a pool of modems available, all you have to do is say auto configure. Then automatically detects all available modems here for you. So again, the location that you go to is here, shared modem services.
Do you have that magazine that
You have to search for it. I will let you know. Sure. Module 4, course 2301, also talks about internet connection wizard. Part of the internet connection wizard, you could specify your connection. If you are going to the internet using modem, router, or your dedicated connection, you have a dedicated connection like a T1, or whatever you have, you can just say, you know what, I don't know what I have, but just don't change what I have.
the Cox Business Service?
That would be full-time, yeah. And then full-time form would be like a form that you can print and send it to an ISP and request it. These are just like sales pitch, really. This form button gathers information about your internet connection and will be needed in order to complete this wizard. So you can share your internet connection and have other people take advantage of it. Also, in order to configure email services, you need to configure SMTP. SMTP is a protocol in which allows you to send mail out, simple mail transport protocol. So in order to do that, SMTP allows you to use SMTP for internet mail. Or you could just say don't change my setting or disable Exchange server messaging. So in other words, if you want to have mail capability, you have to enable SMTP. POP3 is another protocol in order to receive mail. So SMTP is for sending, POP3 is for receiving, okay?
We have a POP3. There's using the Linux box for the proxy server and then the mail, so we actually have a POP3 connection
Yeah,
between the two. Is that where you would set that up?
that's correct.
Okay.
So on the to-do list, if I click in here, you see internet connection was it, as I was talking about. It says an unconnected network card has been detected. Well, obviously you need to have a connection. That's okay. It doesn't allow me to share because I have to have IP address and a cable, which I don't. You are not going to have that problem. I do. Also, as far as the, let's see, SMTP configuring mail, configuring exchange management. Actually, let me just find it here for you. In order to set the SMTP, you have to actually be part of internet connection with it. So let me go and make sure why it doesn't detect that. Just for some reason it says you don't have a connection. I have to have actual connection. So this is great. Let's see. I really am not a hardware guy, so I don't know. Probably they work most of the time. Okay, now both of them are disconnected. Jesus Christ. Okay, and this is unconnected network adapter detected before continuing close this wizard. I just did that. There is no problem. Connections. I don't get it. Just got disconnected again. I'm wondering why.
Not happy with
Is-
something. Yeah.
So as you see here, you're setting the SMTP and then you're pretty much disabling POP3 because POP3 deletes the mail of the Exchange server after it receives it. You know, you could disable it or you could say, you know what, make a copy of that. No, POP3 and SMTP are both on Exchange server. POP3 connection belongs to Exchange server in order to receive the email to your computer. SMTP your mail server in order to send mail out. SMTP is for sending out. POP3 is for working side by side.
I'm just trying to figure out how it's set up to pull from the Linux box. 'Cause it
They have a
resides in the
connector.
Linux box first, and
Yeah.
then it sits there for 15 minutes, and then it gets
Right.
ported over to Exchange.
Exchange server has a connector to Linux, so they're connected that way. Clients are not connected to Linux, obviously.
They're POP3 connections.
Yes.
Connected.
Right.
So I don't. Okay.
Right. They're using the protocol POP3 in order to communicate. But if you have Exchange server communicates with Linux and get the email and passes it back to you. So in order to get the additional Exchange services, such as, for example, Outlook Web Access, as you see here under IIS, Internet Information Server, you have you have pretty much one virtual directory got created for you, and they call that Exchange. Don't pay attention to this error. It is not an error. So if I right click at it and say go ahead and browse it, automatically pops up with an IE, and then I can access my mail via internet, literally. I don't have to have any Outlook application in order to receive my mails. They call it Outlook Web Access, and using that utility you could go through internet and check your mails.
How do you, what would you type for the address for that?
It's just going to come up in a second. You put the domain name /exchange. That's right. As you see in here, server name /exchange. That's right. It is just email. This is just an Outlook over the internet.
So that for remote access, the only thing you do is check your email. 'Cause that's the only thing that's on there, I guess.
So if I go to 2, it automatically shows me all available accounts. I can look for whatever starts with AD and try to find it. That shows administrator. And put it to 2 box. And pretty much send it to myself. And I'm testing it.
What's that address? Can you move that box down just a little bit?
Domain name /exchange. And then I click send. And here, you see that I refresh it and I got an email. So you can reply back that way. So this is acting like your Outlook client.
Localhost is
Means this computer. Okay, localhost means this machine. That's another name.
But like if I wanted to get my email from if I'm out on the road,
You have
or
to
like www whatever it is.
you have to type in your domain name,
Domain.
right? Or whichever name that Exchange server resides on. Most
Put the
likely,
IP address. Is that
yes, you can put an IP address too.
/exchange.
That's right.
And it's gonna ask you for a password and a login, right?
Well, if you
Because anybody can type that in and then
right, you will be authenticated. So you could actually do that. Send messaging right from here. Pretty much, this is the inbox, but you can actually get the messenger also working with the messenger services, which you have a lab in which you're going to work with it really.
Okay.
You have to enable that and then people can take advantage of it. As you see here on your Internet Explorer, on the Internet Explorer itself there's a messenger icon. So right now I don't have that service enabled and I don't have that icon. But if I had Instant Messenger available, then people could see a brand new icon in here. They could click on it and they could see this. The last section talks about firewall. Firewall, and they don't allow every single application to run on your client machine, or vice versa. You don't allow anybody to get out of the internet, or to pretty much configure their application to just send all your sensitive information out. Virtual private network is a capability that you can send an application and the internet world. As you see on page 17, they show you how to configure virtual private network. Virtual private network creates a tunnel, and no one can hack into it. No one can come and steal information. Point connection. Using the virtual private network, you're actually enforcing the security and encryption between your machine and whichever machine you're connecting to over the internet. There's a lab in which you're going to connect to the internet. And then if just in case you wanted to have your own website, Microsoft provides IIS, as you see on page 22. A small business server can host a website by using Internet Information Server 5.0. If you really want to manage IIS alone, there's another. If you want to manage IIS, which is firewall, there's a 3-day course for that. You see, SBS just puts them together, makes the job easier for administration. But if you really want to do some fancy things on it, then you have to become certified on those. However, users on a small business server network can use Internet Explorer as a web server. So in this scenario, in order to troubleshoot, sometimes internet connection fails. Make sure that you can ping, as I showed you before. If you cannot ping the name, if you cannot ping the IP address, you won't be able to communicate. Also, shared fax services, make sure it has been deleted and reinstalled. Because sometimes if the fax machine doesn't work, you should just delete that fax and then reinstall it again. That's the best fixture. Shared modem service, maybe the pool modem is not available or is not accessible. Check the wire, check the device itself because it's a third-party device. Exchange 2000 probably has a problem. Maybe the email message cannot be sent. Just make sure that pretty much you have all the services of Exchange server running. And in order to check that, you can actually go to a small business server or go to the control panel, and then finally, you might have a problem with Outlook Web Access. This is a service. You could check to see if available services are running. All the services should be running for Exchange, for example. All Microsoft Exchange server, you see that? POP3, SMTP and all. Check the status. They should be running, otherwise they're not working. Sometimes for some reason it stops and then you have to go and restart it, you know. So there are a bunch of services available that you have to check and see if they're, working and running. Be the second lab in this chapter.